Good evening. We are here this evening, coming to you to shed a little bit more light on what's been going on in this great, big, wonderful, lovely organization of ours. First of all, let me say that this information is video that we're going to be presenting is for educational purposes, information only, being presented for all of those that are interested in this content. We're coming to you talking about the United House of Prayer for All People. And we began to release some videos pertaining to our organization. I made the mistake of eating some Boom Chicka Pop before we started the video. That's a great big old bag of I think it's caramel sea salt popcorn. Anyway, we don't do advertisements, but at a place called Cost Company, had a great big gigantic bag full. But we're coming to you tonight, and as I shared my story, tonight we're going to be allowing you to listen in on Maria's story. So that said, let's go ahead and jump right on in. So how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How are you, honey?
I'm golden. So the House of Prayer.
Yeah.
How did you come across the House of Prayer? In fact, what's your earliest memory of the House of Prayer?
Actually, my earliest memory of the House of Prayer was before I came to the House of Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't have any experience with, like, within. But there was a young lady that I was very involved in her life when she was a child. I used to just help a lot with her. And her grandmother, she called her grandmother, I don't think she was actually a blood relation, lived diagonal to the House of Prayer in Mooresville. So for 15 to 20 years, I was driving right past that House of Prayer frequently.
And from time to time, it caught your eye.
Yes, because sometimes I'd have to sit there and wait for her to come out, because sometimes she would get dropped off there and I would be picking her up for whatever. And I would be sitting there waiting, and I remember looking at the House of Prayer, and I thought, that's a cute little church.
Little did she know. From there, you said it had been several years that you were there dealing with your friend whose grandmother happened to live right across the street.
Diagonal.
And what were your thoughts at that time?
Well, I actually didn't know if the House of Prayer was actually functioning. Like, if it... I never saw anyone there in all the time that I went. Now, granted, when I went, it usually was not during any of the hours where we would, normally have services. So I just never saw anyone there. And sometimes it just looked very desolate. And I just wondered if, like, people went there.
And you were there almost every day?
Well, I wouldn't say every day, but there would be seasons where I would be there daily or weekly, depending on what was going on.
And the time of day? Morning, afternoon, evening?
The time of day would usually be in the evening.
That said, how did you, from that time to this time, stumble back onto the house of prayer?
Sorry. um, Planet Fitness.
Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
That's a library, grocery
That
store.
is a gym
That's a gym.
that I spent a lot of time at back at that time in my life. I was there a lot.
And you ran into some missionaries at the gym,
If
or
that's what you call yourself.
so I had been writing, and I would just be writing. Long story short, one day, popcorn kernel. But one day, I had just writing every day. And I had moved there to Mooresville. And I was there for maybe 3 years. And while writing, one day I was, the Spirit told me, get out. Just get out. I would just go to the store, write, shoot back, maybe get a bite to eat, shoot back. But let me just get out. I wasn't really that active, but to get out and just do. And I was wondering, okay, what should I do? And I knew that I wasn't really as active as I used to be, taking care of running back and forth, little issues, things here and there for the children. And the thought occurred, why not get a gym membership? So I was looking at the area. There's a very nice YMCA laid out.
Right by where you lived.
Yeah, right
Yeah.
by where I lived. Walking distance, in fact, up the block and across the street. And then maybe 10 minutes drive, there was a Planet Fitness. And I think it might have been because of the cost. Planet Fitness was $10 a month. The YMCA, because it's in this lavish neighborhood. At the time, it would have been like $85 a month. So, saving money, I went over to Planet Fitness. There for maybe 2 to 3 weeks or so, and met a few people talking about workout regimens, knee issue. Long story short, we met there. And I found out that she was a nurse after talking about some black seed oil. A quick conversation about black seed oil. Then you had left, went and done some research, right?
Yes.
Researching
The black seed oil.
black seed oil. And seen you maybe 4 days later, the next week.
Somewhere in there.
And oh, hey, and oh, yeah, that black seed oil. And what was it?
I was getting ready to go get some.
Yeah. And the next time, that conversation might have been just a few minutes. The next time I was talking to a young man that I'd met there.
Who I knew his wife
Right.
from childhood.
While we were talking, she was going by and saw myself talking to him, and she recognized him, and he knew that he knew her from somewhere. Come to find out that you and his wife were...
We were on choir, and we worked at the place of worship where I grew up at together.
And surprise, surprise, all these years later. So the three of us stood there talking. Of course, conversation, went into scripture, Bible. And that evening, we talked maybe 3 hours.
3 hours.
And the conversation led us all outside into the parking lot. And so that kicked off somewhat friendship Bible study / workout. And from there, conversation continued. And it was so intricate, talking about just whatever and relaying it to Scripture, that something came up. And about 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you were getting ready to go and visit your dad out of town.
Yeah.
And she hated doing trips by herself. A friend of yours was supposed to go.
Supposed to go.
And the friend of hers always, as usual,
Bailed on me.
bailed on her and backed out. So I just suggested riding with her, going to meet her dad.
Yeah.
And from there, that evening, met her dad. We hit it off. And we continued talking for the space of, was it about 3-4 months?
Oh, 4.5 months later, we got married. Am I skipping something?
Yeah, somewhere in there. No, about 2 months after that. We've been talking about Bible so much, and then she had asked me, well, when are you going to invite
Me to your church.
me to your church? All of the conversation, the people that I brought in the house of prayer, I never invited them. All the people that I'd introduced to the house of prayer, I never invited them. Same thing, never invited her. But the conversations in the scripture would lead them to ask the question. So I said, well, yeah, you can come whenever you get ready to, but I need to cover some things first and share with you a few things because the house of prayer is unlike any
place you've ever been.
an understatement. So from there, we began talking about house of prayer. And she let me know that she would like to come to visit. I think it was Mallard Creek that I took you to first.
Yes.
And that was an interesting night.
Can I back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I say one thing real quick? First of all, pardon me for forgetting that we were talking about the house of prayer and just thinking we were telling about how we met. Pardon for that.
Right.
But the other part is, so just to back up to something I know I've shared with you, but you probably just don't recall right now, is when we first met, within like the first month, I would say, well, no, probably the first couple weeks. And I asked you, where did you go to church at? Because, of course, that's how I knew to phrase things. Mm-hmm. So I asked you, where did you go to church? And you told me. I was like, oh, okay. And didn't think anything about it. But I did go out to my car and look it up. Right there in the parking lot at the house of prayer, at the
Planet
gym,
Fitness,
yeah, Planet Fitness. So one of the times after we had talked, not one of the long talks, but like after we had spoke, I went and I pulled it up, and the first thing I see,
a whole lot of new joiners bragging about what they had learned and the things that they had seen and how, woo. Right? Something like that or no? No, not so much.
Not. Not at all. So the first video I see is in big letters, the United House of Prayer cult.
Right?
I was like, yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here is one of the ways that I really know. Because like, I'm not like a dum-dum. So like to look at that, a logical person would be like, run, get away. But this is how I also know that it was meant not just for myself, not just for you, not just for anything. It was meant for me to come. It was meant for me to come. Is that even though I looked at that, and I was you already know I was a very scary person when you met me. Like, I was nervous. I didn't trust people. Period. Men, double time didn't trust. So like, just all of those things, everything in me should have ran me the other way. But I clearly had this thought, just give them a chance. And so I just did. And that is nothing but our Father allowing things in His way for things to happen the way that He, planned for them to, not the way that me and you planned for things to go, but the way He planned for things to go.
Say all the time, He knows what He's doing.
Yes.
And that said, when we began going out to different houses, let us see Mallard Creek.
Yes.
We got there for service
During the week.
Right.
So it was down in the
chapel.
We have a tiny little chapel. Yeah.
And this is where she would meet little David.
You calling him?
Right?
Yes, I met him that night.
Right.
I loved him on that guitar.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Terrible. And we started going out on a regular basis there. And I would jump on the bass drum, join in. And we had a nice little time. From there.
I'm skipping. Because when you said Mallard Creek, I first thought about the night that I joined. But no, the first time we went was on a Sunday. And that was...
Was it a Sunday the first time?
No, maybe it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Right.
It was downstairs. That wasn't that house. That was... the first house we went to was Huntersville.
That's right.
We went to Huntersville. That was the first house I ever saw.
So-
but the first Sunday was Mallard Creek.
And so I had taken her around the different houses in the area to show the different locations, the different style of the buildings, like we do. And one night, took her by Mooresville.
Can I back up because
Yeah.
there's some things I want to add. So the first time I ever went to the House of Prayer was at the Huntersville house to a weekday service, and I distinctly remember one of the most important things I remember about that night is that even though I had on a skirt that came all the way to my ankles, I did not have on pantyhose. Or knee highs or anything. My feet were covered. My legs were completely covered. I know nobody else knew. But I remember noticing that all the women had on pantyhose. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I was supposed to have on pantyhose.
It stood out.
And then let me also mention the first Sunday that we went out was to Mallard Creek. And I just want to tell you, one of the things that stood out to me there was how there were so many offerings. I was so confused. You told me not to bring any money. You told me that all the time, not to bring any money, and so I didn't bring any cash. And but you handed me some money. You handed me some cash. But I was so confused. I was like, and you were playing the drums, and I didn't know when to put the money in. Because there were so many offerings. I'd never, ever seen anything like that in my life. I came up for 40 years of my life, I was Baptist. So for 40 years, we had one offering and tithes. That was it. There was nothing else. So I didn't understand all the different offerings. And when somebody came around, I just gave them $20, and then they ended up calling my name out. And I was like, why are they calling my name? Please don't say my name.
She saw the tithes, and you all know it's house offering. Then
Love gift.
and they do right.
Yeah,
Love
no
gift,
idea what I was doing.
convocation coming up, the rallies, and apparently, some houses they take up offering by clubs. So, one of the clubs that she had given $20 to, called her name out, thank her for helping the whatever the club was. But in all of that, in fact, there was Mallard Creek while we were there. One of the individuals had asked, well, perhaps if you wanted to put her name on the roll. And she said, sure.
That was on a weekday night at Mallard Creek downstairs in the little chapel. I distinctly remember that night. I think I remember most of that night.
Yeah, and said, well, are you sure? I'm asking her. Yeah.
Yes, I was ready.
So no pressure, not pushing, not. You watch, you observe, you listen, you feel your way through. I'm going to carry you around, let you see this, let you see that, ask questions, take down notes. So wherever she went, have a Bible, have a notebook, write. If there was questions, write them down. When we get out of service, back to get ready to drop you off, then we can answer those questions. And that's what we did for several months. In fact, that went for the duration. And got accustomed to taking notes everywhere she went. That said,
Can I say one more thing real quick about one of the first things that I also noticed? One of the first houses of prayers that we went to, it was either Mallard Creek or Huntersville. You allowed me to go upstairs into the sanctuary just to look, even though service wasn't happening up there.
right.
And I saw the awards on the wall, the top this and top that. And in my naive state, I thought it had something to do with godliness. How naive. I literally thought that it was like maybe.
Now she's saying naive, but what she means is the thinking, as anybody would think, is this award on the wall because of where it's at, on the wall inside of a sanctuary, inside church, would be for like top attendance or
bringing
the
people
member
in.
for introducing people to Sunday school, or some type of award that has something to do with participation, cooperation, witnessing, outreach, something on those those terms.
I couldn't
But
believe it.
then when she asked the question, what are these pictures and the awards for?
Yeah.
And then you would hear what?
You began to explain to me about really, really basic explanation of G-class. Like a very basic explanation of it.
And you thought,
Okay. Okay. So you want to continue building places for people to worship, and they have the incentive of being recognized
yeah.
if they do, if they're one of the ones who raise the most money. So now I didn't know how money was raised yet, because I was still very fresh to it all.
learning, observing, watching. Ask questions. I'm not going to feed. Ask questions.
And I had plenty of those.
And then we chose to go over and join Mooresville.
I remember that night too.
And what did you think pertaining to your visits to the various houses, and including the mother house?
I thought the mother house was so beautiful. I thought it was the most beautiful place I'd ever been in as a place of worship. I'd never been in anywhere that looked like that. It was amazing to me. Now, I think it's possible, and you can correct me if you recall, I think I went to Greensboro before I ever went to the Mother House in Charlotte because we went to baptism.
Right. This was all during the summer. Um, it was the late spring into the summer that we met. And traveling would be during convocation. So by the time we were going around to visit different houses, convocation, of course, was landing in Greensboro. So we planned to go to Greensboro. And that trip turned out to,
That was exciting
yeah,
for me.
outside baptism,
Yeah.
parking lot across the street. What'd you think about the?
First of all, when you told me that they did the baptisms with a water hose, I thought that was very strange. I mean, I had already been baptized. I was baptized when I was 14 in the place where I grew up at. And I also didn't understand why that people got baptized over and over and over again. Like, I didn't understand that. That was strange to me. But I felt like with me coming in and having kind of thinking that what I had known before was wrong,
Right.
I felt like I should be baptized. And then I began to learn that there were other reasons for baptism according to those teachings. So, of course, I've been baptized so many times I can't tell you at this point. I have no idea how many times I've been baptized. That sounds kind of strange at this point now, thinking about that. I have been baptized a lot because after I got going, I was running.
Yeah, the Forrest Gump. And talked about the various things that were witnessed and seen and discovered. At what point in time, or how far in, how long before you began to really dive into everything that we do in the house of prayer? How did that come about?
I think I was extremely eager to dive into everything pretty much immediately because I remember in September of 2018 when I came in. That's the same month that I joined. That's the same month I first got baptized. And that is when I received the Holy Spirit, but I received the Holy Spirit at home on my floor.
And when you say at home on the floor, what were you doing there?
I one night decided I was just gonna like have this come to Jesus meeting, as people say. It was I've said many times. So I laid this blanket on the floor beside my bed. I went down on the floor face down, and I just started to pray. And I had already been like in a deep state of repentance ahead of that night. So like probably a lot of the work was already done because I had been really, just really pouring out my heart to God and just really seeking after him, like really wanting. I was so done with the world stuff. I was over it. I had my feel, and it was not feeling. It was exhausting and just bad. It was just not good. I was doing all kinds of things at that time in my life. When I met you, I was, as you already know, but they don't, I was in college for a master's program. I already was, a nurse, but I was going to further my education. I was in the gym 5 to 6 days a week, which you did know that. That was a big part of my life. And I was running my daughter, who is now 25 years old, all around this here country for a competitive sport. And it was just, I had very little time to focus on anything else, but that was what I wanted at that time because I needed my brain filled with stuff so that I didn't feel so empty, you know. So like that night, I really just went down and I just surrendered. I was like, I'm all in. I'm scared, but I want you to have I want what you want from me.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, yeah. And I just, you know, went through that period, and I know something supernatural happened on the floor on the blanket that night. I was delivered of some things that had been haunting me probably most of my adult life. So by this time, I was 41 years old when I came in the house of prayer, by the way.
And after that, or since that night, what was your objective and your goals in the house of prayer? Did you hit the gas? Did you slow down?
I hit the gas to the floor. I just wanted all that Father had for me, what God had for me. I wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it was to be in alignment with that, to be doing what He wants me to do in any aspect, whether it was the way I think or the way I dress or the way I speak, you know, anything about me, even my money. I just wanted to do that. So, like, I just wanted to be in alignment. So it went from you taking me from place to place to me like, can we go here, this is going on, that is going on. And if you wasn't available, then I get one of my local sisters, hey, you want to ride with me? I'll take the kids, whatever.
Weekend
or go by myself. I rode by myself a lot too. So like during the week,
convocation, stop after
revivals,
stop after stop.
Oh my gosh.
Whenever there's programs within the district, revivals within the district. And then a favorite stop became
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
one of the spots in the district around Charlotte.
I mean, I went to noon. You're not talking about the noonday, are you? Honey, I don't know.
Where we met, one of the favorite spots.
Oh, you're going to have to just say it.
Everybody in Charlotte knows where our seniors are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I did love that. I did love that house so much.
Going over to Paradise. And it, of course, was the opportunity to meet the seniors, to talk to the seniors. And
to fellowship with them, like during the services. The services there were a little different.
Mm-hmm.
They were, you know, it's like the original, what they say, the OGs. It's like you know what I mean, like the original.
They were in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it really made an impression on Maria. And of course, you know, I had known already that when you're looking at individuals that have their heart in what it is that they're doing, that's going to make all the difference in the world. And for those of you who knew many of the members there at Paradise, y'all know that they come to service, they're going to get it in. And when you hear those voices begin to ring out, and those saints begin to ring out, with the scrub board, the
Yeah.
washboard.
Yeah.
Some with the piano, the tambourines, and others just that clap. And then the voices. Then we had the opportunity for Maria to hear some of them on program for the first time. And what'd you think when you heard some of the seniors?
It was awesome. I loved it so much. I just also have a love for elderly people anyway. So like, it just about makes me cry just to think about some of those times. You know, that was
Yeah.
so. Those were some really awesome times for me, and I loved going there. And it became. You're right. It became a spot for us because. It'd be like date night for us
Yeah.
on Friday night.
Our dates were House of Prayer.
Yes.
People like, y'all don't do anything? Y'all don't
Yeah.
go?
Be like,
Yeah.
we're going out tonight.
Oh, where y'all going? Where restaurant? Y'all gonna go movie? Y'all gonna go? Oh, no, we're going to service. Service? Yeah, we're going to House of Prayer. Church? That's a date. And that's what it would be. Sometimes we hit 2 different houses.
Yep.
Leave one, go to another.
Yeah, let somebody have a short service. We would sure enough go somewhere else.
And so it became that. The excitement would spill over to not just convocation, but it got to the point where we would be surprised with trips landing in your email.
So what I was doing, I would say this probably started in 21. No, maybe 2020. Because I remember,
21?
I think 2020 because
Okay.
that was the year that I, COVID, the what you call it, the pandemic or whatever.
Pan Am.
The when
No,
that
that's
came around.
Pandem.
When-
Pandem.
Yeah,
Pandem.
when that sickness came around, so I had booked a flight for us for Miami. I was just determined. Like I had already booked it well before any of that came about, but that was the first year that I had really started to plan like a whole year at a time. So after 2019 of having to patch my work schedule and try to do it, I learned it's better just to deal with it all at once. So what I would do was take off my days for work all at one time for the whole year, for the whole convocation season.
Schedule.
Yep, schedule it. And I would book all the hotels. I don't even know did you know that I did that?
She'd say, "Ooh, guess what landed in my inbox?"
It'd be a reminder.
Yeah, trips that she was putting together. Of course, different House of Prayer events, or just to go to a city where she hadn't been to actually go to the House of Prayer. In fact,
We even visited. Even when my daughter, who like I said is 25 now, she was cheerleading when I first came in for the first couple of years. She was still doing the travel team, and when we would go out of town to her competitions, we would find the houses of prayer in the area, and we'd go to service there.
mm-hmm.
So here everybody's headed out to go eat at night with the groups of parents, and here we are, and I got my skirt onto to the floor, and he's got a suit on, and we're headed out.
Going out to service.
Yep, going out to service. So we went to Louisville, Kentucky at a cheer competition. We went to Atlanta, Georgia. We went to Indianapolis, but they were closed.
Cincinnati.
They were closed. We didn't get to go in there.
Cincinnati.
Did we go to? We didn't stop at Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't remember Cincinnati.
I
remember we drove through.
Yeah,
But, yeah. And of course the local one, the ones that are like South Carolina ones, Florida.
Yeah, local for us because the distance is so close.
South Carolina,
but of course, we were talking about an hour or two. Georgia.
But then I had that. Can I tell about my experience of when I went to Florida the one time?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Florida to a cheer competition with my daughter, and I had never got to meet my sister-in-law, who
Right.
lives in Florida, and my niece, who now lives here. So
Yeah.
happy about that. And so I went, while I was there for the competition, I took 2 days to go visit. One day I just went to visit my sister-in-law and my niece, and the next day I went back and I took them to the house of prayer because the house of prayer was over an hour from them. And so they didn't get to go very often. So I took them, and it just happened to be grace going up that day. And so I was like, "Oh, this is great! Not only do I just get to see the Petersburg, St. Petersburg House of Prayer, and join this service. It's a grace going up, and I'd never done that before, and I was excited for that as well. While I was there, so this would have been in May, I think April of 2019, I believe. I was with my sister-in-law and my niece. The service goes through. Towards the end of the service, they call up the Florida State Choir. Excuse me. And so everybody in the audience gets up and goes up there. I'm visiting from Mooresville, North Carolina. And so I'm
You
like,
don't know what they're going to sing.
I don't know
you
what's
know
going
what
on.
They're prepared for.
Yeah. I'm never probably going to be back at that house again, and definitely probably won't be back at that house again at this point. But even at that time, I was like, I may never get to visit here again. I may, never see these people again. So, of course, I sit there with my sister-in-law. After our service, the pastor from, was it Dania? He stops me in the kitchen and scolds me for not singing with them. And he was rude. And I thought, if my husband was here, you would not be doing that. But I remained respectful. I was like, just, yes, sir. Okay.
That was one of her first times experiencing one of our men in a position
Being a
who
bully.
abused the power of the position. And I have shared that everything in the house of prayer is free will. Everything in any place of religious institution is free will. No one is to be mandated or made or forced or coerced to do anything. It's all free will. People can go and come as they please, visit as they please, but there's nothing that you can do to make that person or those persons do anything or force them to do anything. However, unfortunately, we have quite a few people, and it's not just here in this organization, but many others as well, where they're being forced or guilted into doing things. We have rules, and with those rules, in fact, did you begin learning about the rules? You found some books in Mooresville, and you stumbled across that you started reading, or how did that come about? And the rules of the House of Prayer.
No books in Mooresville
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
So
No.
what happened?
So, probably before I even became a member, which I became a member in September of 2018, I met you in June of 2018. And so somewhere in that vicinity of time, you had all these books. I began to read the books, and as time went on, you would answer questions and teach me, the Constitution, the auxiliary bylaws, and the Truth and Facts, and all those books. You went through all of that with me early.
Mm-hmm. So I said that to say that a lot of our individuals that are in positions of authority hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. The pastor of Dania at the time was not familiar with the fact that she already knew the rules. And we have individuals that at times bully other individuals. And unfortunately, some of those who are in positions don't know the rules. And so she's seeing things and hearing things that are either outside the rules or contradictory to the rules. Seeing people conduct themselves in a manner that is contrary to the rules. And it's done so nonchalantly that it gives the impression that there's no care, no concern. Incidentally, that's an ongoing cycle throughout the organization. You may have pastors actually doing certain things or have the members doing certain things. Again, not in line with the rules, outside the rules. So for a new member or a visitor or a friend to see these things, that's going to make an impression on them. And that impression is not going to be so favorable. And whenever you saw things like that, what would you think?
I thought that was just rude for anybody to behave that way, much less somebody who calls herself a child of God, much less somebody that calls herself a leader of the people of the child of God.
As his children should be from the front to the back. But all the way in the front shouldn't just be children believing, but they should be more mature in what it is that we're learning, teaching, or professing. And if the individuals in the front are doing things contrary or against, or looks like they may have more than one walk, then how does that spill over for a new member?
Well, I can tell you in that instance, I was really, if I had not been in the midst of so many people, I would have cried. That upset me so bad. I just wasn't accustomed to people like speaking to me that way for no reason. I mean, because he knew I was a visitor there. He knew I was from North Carolina. He knew that. He didn't know that I had only been a member for less than a year at that point, but he didn't need to know that because it wasn't necessary to know that to be nice to somebody.
And they certainly didn't know whose husband she had.
If he's watching this, I want him to know I forgive him. It was very hurtful at the time, though, and I hope that he doesn't behave that way with anybody, anywhere, ever again, because you can't just go around treating people any kind of way. It doesn't matter like where you're at or who you're around. If you call yourself somebody who's following after the word, then you just can't be behaving that way. It just turns people away from, and that was one of the things I thought about was if I really was a woman who came in there by myself like that, was as new as I was, I literally thought about that. I was like, I probably would never come back again.
And again, it's unfortunate
because I didn't sing with a
yeah,
group I'm not a part of. That's why I got fussed at.
right. This idea was based on you did not do what I told you to do.
And he didn't even tell me to.
Right. But that's the impression. You didn't move when I say move. And unfortunately, while we were visiting different houses, she would see other people do this. You remember the one where we saw one of the apostles?
Was this downstairs at the mother house?
Mm-hmm.
I was appalled. I couldn't believe
Yeah.
it. I saw this was on a Friday.
Friday night. Mm-hmm.
Tell me what that is called. That It's escaping me what that night.
Saints Repair Night. That Saturday, Friday
No.
night.
It was an official meet. It was like a meet. No, it wasn't on a Friday.
That was a program.
Was it? He was talking like that at a program?
In fact, that happened to be the week going into convocation.
That's what it was. That's
Yeah.
why I thought it was part of the
Yeah.
convocation. Yeah, this apostle, he was so mean for no reason to the people, to the band,
Specifically to
the
the
band.
Yeah.
but
Because you remember why?
because he wanted them to stop playing at the second that he said it.
And they were
But
just
they-
finishing up the song. But because they didn't stop at that moment.
He humiliated them. But can I tell you something?
Ooh,
It's a spiritual thing. Can I say it?
Yeah.
Okay. So that very same apostle who did that, one of my good friends, one of my sisters, her and another sister at another time, another event, saw a demon in his face. And it scared. One of them looked and was like, "Did you see that?" And they were like, "Yeah, what is that?"
You never know who's watching
I
you.
was like, that
You never
explains
know.
things.
Right. You never know what people see. Those things written in the scripture are real and they're true, whether we believe in it or not. Unfortunately, we have far too many men up in the front who's smacking gums, saying a lot of things, but don't really believe the things that they're saying. And it is oh so very visible. That said, those things leave a sour impression.
Can I tell you what else left
Mm-hmm.
a sour impression? Was in Greensboro. Now, this isn't any shade to that house or to that pastor because it had nothing to do with them. It was a convocation night, and it was my first time there. Do you remember what I'm about to talk about?
In Greensboro?
The band boy.
Oh, yes. Yes.
There is a problem with perversion.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
You-
did
you-
not know anything.
I'm gonna
about
let
this.
you talk about this because I don't want to say anything that
Yeah.
too much or not enough. I mean,
This
you could
might
leave
have
it
been
at
a
that if you
Thursday
want
night. Might have been a Thursday.
to.
Or
It was a Friday night.
Friday night.
It was. I think it was my first time in convocation.
Yeah. So you will know how we gather. And the crowds sometimes are pretty thick. At that time, this was before the Andy came, the Andemic, the Andy. So while we're standing in the aisle, there was a band member that came by with others, just going by, getting ready for either the Love March or going to the restroom or what have you. But there's the wall here where we typically stand against the pews. Because we don't want, be anybody's way. And against the pews, you have a better sight line because everybody else is sitting down. Well, one of the band members, she saw who it was, but she didn't tell me.
I didn't want a fight to happen in the house of prayer on my first night at convocation. Although I didn't really know that you would fight, but I definitely didn't think it was going to go over well.
Yeah. But as he went by, he grabbed her. And, some may say, well, you're just squeezing by people, it's a crowd or whatever. No, there's a difference between moving by people, squeezing by people, and literally grabbing a person's body part. So, of course, that happened.
I didn't tell
And-
you for a long time.
Yeah.
Not that I wanted to keep anything from. I just
I
didn't
know.
want any problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's things that people know about each other, especially family members. They, of course, have the tendency to know you better than other people know you. So as a result, she didn't want there to be any situation. So with that said, we have a lot of different experiences where you're there to get something, do something, enjoy the service, give the Lord your service, while other things are happening that completely takes your mind off of what you're there for. There was one time when we arrived at one house, and there was this empty pew. What did you think about that?
Wait, you're going to have to help me, honey. We've been
Convocation stopped. There was an empty pew one night. We went out. Convocation, is jam packed.
Yeah, wasn't it? Didn't it have a label on it though, like a paper?
Mm-hmm.
For Bailey family,
Right.
Bailey's family.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what it read. Mm-hmm. The Bailey family. And what was it that you thought about that?
I thought, well, he's my Addie. Why can't I sit here?
Right. And I said, well, yeah, every single one of us in here. I said, but this right here says a lot.
And it never got filled, by
Right.
the way.
There was about 2 people all
Yep.
the way on the end.
And that was often that
And-
it wasn't filled.
Right. And you remember I was about to, but I didn't because she's new. And I did not want the knowledge of who I was to become an issue for her. Coming in, I told
That
her.
soon.
Yeah. Because my history, people know throughout the house of prayer, my history goes back. And I was known, I was called a loose cannon, nicknamed by the council, loose cannon, because I stood up for, what's right. If I saw something wrong, I'm going to address it. And I've addressed different things in different states with the chairmen. So that early, and didn't I tell you that?
You explained to me. So this is something. I'm glad you brought that up. It's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Before I started attending, or maybe shortly after I started actually going to the House of Prayer, you explained to me about what happened with your previous experiences in San Antonio, and even after that, and how things went down. Now, you didn't give me a lot of detail at that time. You just kept it really, you kept it very basic, just to let me know that you'd gone through some things. But
Did I mention any names? Was I negative towards anyone? Did I tear anybody down?
you just really explained to me what happened.
Right.
I think it was more like a heads up in case the inevitable, which would be that people would be possibly side-eyeing me or treating me weird because I'm with you.
Right.
Okay, so like it was more of that, which is why, fast forwarding way to when.
Before we get there,
Yes, sorry.
I wanted to interrupt for a moment because I didn't tear anybody down. I didn't go into detail about anyone. I didn't let her know, what the council does and how they do things behind closed doors and how they set people up and tear them down or lie to the bishop and sometimes how it looks like that. I didn't go into any of that. You're coming in the house of prayer. I'm gonna tell you, it's devils in here as well as angels.
Yeah.
You got people on both sides. You're gonna get what you give, and if you go in blind, keeping on blinders and your focus up there, then you have a chance of getting what you're there to get. So, with that said, I wasn't tearing down or talking about anyone, so that that would not be on her mind. However, I did go into the fact that there's some things that happened, and as a result of those things happening, I am no longer in the position that I was in, and that was years ago. Going back now, as I introduce you around the organization, you may sense or see some things. If you do, you know why. It's people who's recalling, remembering, or whatever, even though they don't know the details of my particular situation. And I let her know that because you are going to be targeted simply because you're with myself. Now, all that said, you remember what you're about to say? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So I was thinking about when, I don't know if I should say this man's name, but you remember in 2023, after we had done the General Assembly, then we had to go to the lower court, and then you had a conversation with a certain apostle. Now, I can't remember if you already called his name out in the previous video. I don't remember if we said his name or not.
Yeah.
That's why when we were on the sidewalk and he was patronizing me, oh, how are you? It's nice to meet you. That's why I was boiling inside, because of what he said inside. Something to the effect of, whatever Addie says, I'm behind it. And that's why, in response to his greeting me, I said, and this was as calm as I could keep it. I don't know if you remember this. I was like, my husband, despite everything that has happened, is more loyal and dedicated to Addie than anybody I know. And he didn't. He didn't even want to hear that part. I was holding back.
Yeah. Out of everything that had happened, in fact, you remember the ball game?
Yes, I can't forget that.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
So, again, introducing her to everything that was a prayer, I had taken her to the softball game.
2019.
Yeah.
Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so excited. I had never been close to the bishop, physically that close to the bishop up to that point. And so you were preparing me and letting me know that how at the end, that he may give you something off of the table. He may allow you to have something off the table. And we were like really close to the front of the line. Mm-hmm. And so there was only like 2 or 3 people ahead of us. Did you go first or did I? I went first, didn't I?
No. I went first.
It literally gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it again. Yeah. Honestly, that was so...
No, I'm sorry.
I thought I went first because I enjoyed it way too much for you to have gone
thinking
first.
About another event, but yeah.
Okay, were you thinking about a different event altogether?
No. Okay. We had only went to the one softball game.
No, we went to another one, but we
didn't approach the tent.
We didn't approach. No, we definitely weren't approaching it then.
Right.
So here was my train of thought. I went up, and now this I'm actually ashamed to say I knelt down in front of this man. because
it is what it is.
it is
That's
what
what
it
you
is.
did
I'm
at the
just
time.
saying, like,
And
I know I don't need to
yeah.
be like but it just to say it out loud. It's just like,
And she said that because y'all don't know everything. However, looking back, and I share this with all of you, it's okay to describe what it was that you experienced when you experienced it, because that's what it was.
yeah,
The adoration, the exaltation, the lifting up, all of that is what it was. And so when I talk about even myself, after I've gone through everything that I've gone through in the organization, and people didn't see me for years, years, and he knows where my mind was. It's either I need to stay away or, yeah, it was good for me not to be around. Stuff here. Sometimes people have things in here that no one knows. And so, quite frankly, I didn't want people to disappear. So I needed our Father to deal with me. Anyway, I came back, and bringing her would, of course, bring me. And all she knows is she told that apostle. I'm not. I'm not going to say his
I
name.
think you already did, but
Yeah, I said it in another video.
Yeah, we don't have to do it
Yeah,
again.
and I'm gonna try to get around the names. I don't want people to have this thinking that I'm just, at this point in time, people know that we're telling the truth. People, they're ashamed. People feeling shamed right now, because of what they've done, and their stuff is coming out. But at this point, we're winding up. It's downhill. We're at that point in time where we're letting everybody know, which is why I've been saying stop giving your money, because it's just going to be a waste of time. There's not going to be an announcement weekend this year. All this G class and the stuff that people raising, even these pastors that's got members having programs for them, rallies for them, cooking in the kitchen for them. All of that stuff is unfair for you all, because every single member of the House of Prayer is in competition with everyone else. And for the congregation to be working on behalf of their pastor, that pastor should be ashamed of themselves. They should literally be ashamed of themselves. That is not what pastoring is. That is more of the same thing, taking advantage of that congregation. When you have people working for you, they're doing even more. You already have them working for the bishop. They're breaking their backs for the bishop. You're taking their nickels and their dimes and their dollars for the bishop. And then you're having them do more for you to put G-class on your name. That's disgusting. And this is why I've been telling the members, start standing up to your pastors. It's not a pastor. They're working on behalf of the bishop. And they're robbing you left and right, blind. And they're guilting you into doing these things that they know they're benefiting off of you. There's no care, there's no love, there's no concern. All these members out here right now, sick and shut in, senior citizens, you don't hear about pastors going to visit them. You don't hear about pastors going to pray for them. You don't even hear about pastors calling them on the phone. Family members have emailed us, texted us, called us to tell us that they were livid. They've called Portal Drive and could not get help when their family members have given hundreds of thousands of dollars in the House of Prayer.
Even their life insurance money.
And including life insurance. Some pulled out pensions. Some pulled out 401ks. Some gave over $1 million of their dollars. Some gave several million. And when the time came for that family to have help because they did not know that that family member went to the insurance company and pulled money out against their insurance and put it in a house of prayer. When the family found out, they went calling. Sometimes it wasn't a death, sometimes it was just a need. Turned away. Same thing with pastors. When families come to get help, can you just put out a pan for help? I seen with my own eyes a chairman. Family came to them for one of their family members. I'm not going to say the name, but a chairman. And this chairman today is withering up. Got a foot halfway in the grave. These things that are being done by these men, you're going to pay the price. And people can see all across the front sickness, all across that front. And I've said before, he's just giving you time to repent. Anyway, the things that she's saying, out of all the things that I've been through, I would lift and exalt. Lift and exalt. In fact, before we got married, what was our conversation?
We had a lot of conversations, honey.
What would we have gotten married?
Oh, that part.
Right.
Yeah. So, actually, we were on our way to convocation in South Carolina.
Columbia, yep.
And you asked me if the bishop said that we could not get married, would I stay at the house of prayer? Is that how you stated that?
Well, that was the second.
It was the
question.
second part of the question.
Right. But the first part was what?
Was you remember better than I do that? I remember as you tell it.
If we ask, if he says no, what would you do? In fact, I made it even harder than that.
Yeah, you did make it even harder than that
wanna tell
because
him?
yes, you said if he said no, but I have someone else for you to marry.
I made it as hard as I possibly could for her to answer that question. If we go to him and ask him for his blessing to approve of our getting married, and he says no, and not only says no, but if he says, I have somebody else in mind for you, what would you do? And I left it open-ended because I need to know that you are, well, what did I tell you?
That I am not coming into the house of prayer for you, but for the right reason.
And if he says, no, but I have somebody else for you. And I didn't hint, I didn't suggest anything.
I did not enjoy that conversation, by the way.
Right? But the answer, she said, well, that's the Lord's servant. So if
What
he
else?
says no, and if he says there's someone else he has in mind, what am I supposed to do? Of course, that's his servant. I can't turn him down. I can't say no. I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't want to. But that's what he say. I said, okay.
Glad it didn't go that way.
And then I said, well, if something were to happen and I left the house of prayer, well, what would you do?
And I said, where else could I go? There's nowhere else to go. I have to stay.
Right? That this is the Lord's house. I can't leave.
There's nowhere else to go. This is the only place on the earth that's approved of God.
You remember what I said after that?
Not offhand.
I said, okay, so then we can go ahead and ask. But had she said, as she answered those questions the opposite way, we wouldn't have gotten married. You remember me telling you that? I say that because that's where my head was pertaining to Bishop Bailey.
Yeah.
Even after
And mine,
everything,
apparently.
right? And who brought her? Who taught? Who showed? Who walked through Scripture? Who, in order for her to get where she was, all the members that came in the House of Prayer prior, San Antonio, California, Virginia. That's where I was. And even after I went through all of that, San Antonio closed, the lies that came out of Bishop Cunningham now, but him and the rest of the council, so much so that Bishop Bailey is repeating what they're saying, and never, not once, not one time, as my Father in heaven is my witness, I was never asked one time if the things that were said about me were true.
And I'm sure that was no accident.
Not once. In fact, there was never an interrogation. There was never an investigation. I told Bishop Cunningham, I said, every single one of y'all under violation. So I have a list of violations against the general counsel. One by one, he asked me about them. So y'all have not let me know who my accusers are. You haven't let me know what the accusations are. I don't even know what the accusation is. There are no accusers. What do you mean there's no accusers? Somebody's accusing me. There's no accusers. You see any accusers? I said, that's the problem. What are the accusations? There are no accusations. Someone is saying something. Why is he saying what he's saying about me from the mountain? We going back and forth. I'm yelling at him now. Everything I said is swept under the rug. Not one time did any of the violations that I laid out against the council come forward before Bishop Bailey. But all of that, I digress. When I came back, he's still who he is. Mm-hmm. No matter what. We got to the ball game.
Yes, and I knelt down in front of him and handed him a 5, I think. And he was like, he asked me something, would I like something, I believe. And I asked for something on the table. You kind of prepped me for that part, like what to do. And I asked for something, and he said, that's not enough. And in my thinking...
Salad dressing.
Salad dressing, that's what it was. And in my thinking, now this is how warped my thinking was. Anybody's thinking. I thought, when he said that's not enough, I automatically thought that I didn't hand him enough money. How sad is that?
But that's what we were saying.
Yeah, that is what I thought up to that point. And now at this time, I'd only been in the house of prayer for 1 year. 1 year, and my thinking automatic. And so I was like, I immediately started to go into my...
That's not enough, meaning...
Not enough money. I thought he meant that. But what he meant was that wasn't enough, the salad dressing. So then he gave me...
Had the maids
go into his own bag and give me a Ziploc bag. He reached in, gave me a handful of Hershey Kisses in my hand.
Took some out of his stash.
Mm-hmm.
Put some in the bag.
And put it... He put them in my hand.
And she had a dream about this.
Yeah. About 2 weeks or so before we went, I had a dream. Before we went
to... and we won't go into details, but she had a dream that he had given her kisses.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, quite a few of her dreams have come to pass. But after that, then I went and I approached closely because I wanted to whisper. And what did you notice when I approached them?
The council.
What did the council do when I approached them?
They moved in. The same way as I showed you on the video, when you went up and he began leaning over to talk
Los
to you.
Los Angeles, California, 2012.
I had that video and I was watching it one day. I was like, did you ever look at this video and see how when he leaned over and started talking to you,
Right.
that they literally were telling the band to shut up.
Yeah, Saturday night, I think. No, Sunday. When he had made a call for anybody who had left and want to come back. I got in that line. My head was so messed up because by that time he had from the floor scolded me several times, told me I need to have an open hand. My fist is too closed. And at this time, members wondering what in the world's going on. I'm wondering what in the world's going on. None of the stuff that's being said is true. None of it. I'm in the middle of the service. What do you do? But this is what they do. And many times people have been on that floor not having a clue. And this is why I say for the members of the house of prayer, for y'all to turn on people like that and start attacking them and going after them and obliterating, I mean, cutting them off and everything, that person is walking version of Satan himself. Just because somebody up front, up on the mountain, sometimes even chairmen do it.
Doesn't that even just go against what the word says, the scriptures
Absolutely.
that you're supposed to have?
But so indoctrinated that no matter what, all I did, I kept praying. I don't understand this. And I would tell the members, same thing, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. However, he is who he is. And all we can do is just pray about it and obey. That's where I was. Not one time would I kick against, turn people against. Told everyone. And as members were leaving, because they were angry at him and the council because of their treatment towards me. I was their pastor. I was the one who brought them in. I was the one that they saw helping, providing, taking care of, protecting, putting food on, all kinds of things that the members of the organization will never know. But that's what they knew me to be. Our home was opened up. People living. And the council did not know these members. The bishop did not know these members. They didn't know names. They didn't know who they're looking at. But they would come in to different houses around the organization and completely tear it up. All the effort that was put into building these congregations, helping people in their personal lives, turn their lives around. We had a prostitute turn her life completely around. Drug dealers, gangbangers. We can go on and on and on. And this is what we're watching. When she came, and as we got to the tent, after she had gotten what he had given to her, I leaned down. Council came in. If y'all see, for those of you who still have your videotapes, 2012 LA, when I got up on to the front, everyone looking like, what in the world's that, Lewis? Messed up. I'm thinking something's wrong with me. People telling me I got the wrong spirit. Those closest to me, some of the highest saints, I mean, all the time, we just caught up all the time. I got the wrong spirit. People turning on me. Okay, it is what it is. I don't understand it. I got to the front, and he looked. What do you want?
You can see him mouth it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing here? Those were the words. What are you doing here? I said,
what do you want was another encounter with him.
no, that was at the ball game. I'm talking about L.A.
I know. I was saying that was a different encounter when he said that. Yeah.
And I had to find the words. I want to make sure I have your spirit. You already got my spirit.
Your sincerity was so precious, though. Woo. Like watching the video, I mean, to tell you, I cried.
I was ready
because
to fall apart.
I just knew you were just hurting so bad, but I also knew that like your sincerity, even in your pain, was that you wanted to make sure that you were in alignment with him, I knew that I could see that, and it just
Now, in that video, I did not know at the time that the council was setting me up. I'm still trusting them. These are men I looked up to as big brothers. Some of them I looked at like a father. Like a father. And it felt like they took a knife and just kept digging in. And
you and a lot of other people, they did that too.
talking about leaving, I wanted to. I got up there. And he put his hand on my shoulder, had me step up closer. Now, mind you, this was the year after I had our one-on-one meeting. So while he's talking, you see council, and they'd getting on the band, quiet, quiet, quiet. You see all this. This is what she saw at the ball game. Council, come in. And I'm trying to talk to remind him, you said if I ever needed to get to you, if I ever needed to bring you information, if I ever needed to talk to you, if I ever...
Do whatever's necessary.
Right? Well, I don't care what you got to do. I said, all right. I don't care what you... I said, okay. And at that time, I said, I've been trying to get in touch with you for 2 years. Letters, phone call, 2 years. Do you hear what I said? If you need to get in touch with me, you make sure you get in touch with me. You make sure I see you, whatever you have to do. I said, okay. I told people I would pitch a tent on the lawn and stay right there at that door and bang on that door. Remember, I was on my way to the parsonage? Mm-hmm. I was going to block the gate. I was going to park my car at the gate and block the entrance. You ain't going to go nowhere until I talk to you. I told my district chairman when he said Bishop Bailey sent him to San Antonio to check. I said, you ain't coming here. You ain't coming. Not one councilman. Ain't nobody stepping a foot here until I talk to him for myself. Did you hear what I said? The bishop said, I don't care who said. You ain't coming here. Nobody coming here. My job is to protect these people. I wish you would come here. Come here and find out what happened. Those are my exact words. In fact, I'm going to show y'all the emails. But she would see this at the ball game. Because as I was reminding him, what was it that he said?
He said, I don't even have time for myself. I don't have time. I don't even have time for myself.
And before that, while I was telling him what you told me, I don't remember everything I tell everybody.
That he said that.
That's it.
Since when? Do you not remember?
And that's when it went. I'm on my knee and I'm trying to get close enough to whisper.
And he was also like, I can't hear you. You got to speak up.
Because our communication before has been one-on-one. Remember, he sent everyone downtown, put everybody out the parsonage. When I tell you, I could tell you some things. And while we're supposed to be here. It didn't take all that. All you got to do is say, 7 o'clock. Come and see me. Anything. At that time, I'd written 4, maybe 5 letters. And he said, I don't have no time. I don't have time for a meeting. Everybody want to see me. Everybody want to see me. I ain't even got time for myself. Mm-hmm. I ain't even got no time for my own self. What does that tell you?
That's what he said.
I said,
you don't have time for yourself.
What I wanted to say at the time was, but I didn't know. I didn't know. He's in on some of this stuff. But I wanted to say, well, of course you don't have time.
You're the bishop.
You're the bishop.
One's God's one holy man servant on all the earth.
Right. Everyone wants to, of course. Yeah, that's the job. Can't come to these liars. They're not going to get anything done. Pastor Cunningham was standing right there. I can't even say the other names. But he went on and said, Write a letter. Put it in a letter. Put it in a
What
letter.
a waste.
Write a letter. That's it. I've written letter. Put it in a letter. And now
That was so
letting it
terrible.
go. Hey, do you hear me? Do you understand me? Put it in a letter. So, okay. Now, what would you like?
Toothpicks.
Let me get those toothpicks. Toothpicks? The toothpicks. I got the toothpicks. I think I had a 10 or a 20. But the salad dressing wasn't enough. Anyway, thank you. Now, we were the first ones in line. So when we got up the line, others coming up. No, we weren't the first ones.
No, there was a woman
I just
and
remembered.
like 2 little boys or something before us.
Because some of the items had been gone. But I left. We stood back, watched them go off. Yeah, matter of fact, I talked to Apostle Cunningham.
Not that day.
Yeah. After he left, right before we walked off, and before he walked off, remember he had on that the black pants and that polo shirt, and he came over for about 2 minutes or so. You remember?
That was another time.
Mm-mm.
Did you talk to him twice then at a ball game? Because I know
Yeah.
for sure. Oh, it was. Okay, then.
But that day,
I might have been traumatized. I couldn't remember. I was
Um,
ready to leave after that happened.
because he was glad to see us. But then, based on what I said, that's when his demeanor changed.
I don't remember
And
it
he
at
didn't
all.
want to talk about anything else after that.
I just remember when we talked to him on another at another ball game where we had gotten there kind of late that day. I just remember that time.
Where was that?
Where else did they do the game? Oh, was it? No. We missed that one altogether. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
But he remembers. He knows. Anyway, all that said, as I was driving, we drove away, getting ready to drive away, I pulled the car over. And I just let go.
And I never had seen you cry before.
I let go.
I was so
The
upset.
anger, the resentment, just, I felt deflated because I'd done everything. And at that moment, I felt like there's nothing I could do. No matter what I tried, no matter what I did, nothing I could do. Now, I went in this direction because she would see all of this. She's watching all of this. She's noticing all of this, taking all of this in, which is why she said to the apostle who came outside the general council after the general assembly when I was sent downstairs to tell them what I told Apostle Cunningham. It was that person out in the hallway that she told outside that I was the biggest supporter. Was a supporter?
Devoted, most devoted, and loyal.
Now, we'll shift and begin to go into what began to change and how this transitioned into where we are now. As soon as we come back. This is an hour and 30 minutes.